not for intolerance.
No, of course not. But the picture you're painting is, to some extent, true, but is hugely incomplete. It is certainly true that plenty of fanatics and jihadis are Muslims.
Et je voudrais attirer avec vous, devant vous, votre attention sur le résumé de ce livre blanc que vous trouverez sur Internet et sur le site du ministère de la Défense. Et qu'est-ce qu'on lit dans ces grandes lignes du livre blanc? C'est la première page. Première page, premier paragraphe. Nous avons ici, à la 11e ligne du résumé du livre blanc, l'apparition d'un ennemi nommément désigné qui est le terrorisme se réclamant du djihadisme. Eh bien, face à ça, il est temps d'en revenir aux faits. Or, il y a un grand secret dont personne n'a beaucoup parlé, qui est le rapport Europol, le rapport de toutes les polices européennes qui a été publié le 27 juillet 2011 sur le bilan des actes terroristes au cours des 5 années 2006-2010 en Europe et en France. Il y a eu un article dans Libération, un peu gêné aux entournures, qui a dit « En Europe, les actes terroristes islamistes sont rares ». Ben, en effet. Nous allons voir un peu de quoi il retourne. Voici ce qu'a révélé, c'est pas moi qui le dis, ce sont les rapports officiels de toutes les polices d'Europe. Nous avons à gauche les personnes suspectées des attaques terroristes. Il s'agit des suspects. De toutes les attaques terroristes à travers toute l'Union européenne sur les 5 années 2006-2010 en fonction des incriminations. 2,7% on a suspecté dans 2,7% des cas qu'il s'agissait d'attentats venus de l'extrême droite. Dans 7,8% des cas qu'il s'agissait d'attentats venus de l'extrême gauche. Dans 62% de cas du fait qu'il s'agissait d'attentats dus à des séparatismes régionaux, dans 2,1% des cas, ce que l'on appelle pudiquement divers, c'est-à-dire en fait des systèmes mafieux du racket organisé par la mafia, la 'ndrangheta calabraise, la Camorra napolitaine, et puis toutes les mafias qu'il n'y a pas qu'en Italie. Et 25,4% qui étaient des actes dont on suspectait les islamistes. Ça, ce sont les personnes suspectées. Et ce qui est intéressant, c'est de comparer ceci aux résultats des recherches et des enquêtes menées à bien. Et voilà ce que ça donne. L'origine réelle des attaques terroristes, extrême droite, était soupçonnée dans 2,7% des cas, 0% des cas. L'extrême gauche, 7,8%, 9,2%. Les séparatismes régionaux, 62%, 85,1%. Les divers et mafias, 2,1, 4,6%. Les islamistes, 1 cas sur 4, 25,4%, 0,4%. Et en France, eh bien, en France, nous avons les mêmes statistiques. Ça, ce sont les personnes suspectées d'attaques terroristes en France sur la période 2006-2010. Extrême droite, 0,3%. Extrême gauche, 4%. Séparatismes régionaux, 69,2%. Les divers et mafias, 0,4%. Les islamistes, 26,1%. Personnes suspectées. Et maintenant, après les enquêtes menées, quelles ont été les origines réelles? Extrême droite, 0,3%. Donc l'origine réelle, 0,3%, 0%. Extrême gauche, 4,4%, 0%. Séparatismes régionaux, 69,2% suspectés, 95,4%. Divers, 0,4%, 4,6%. Islamistes, 26,1%, 0%. Ça n'est pas moi qui le dis, ce sont les statistiques officielles de toutes les polices européennes après examen précis des actes terroristes. En d'autres termes, au cours des 5 dernières années, 100% des nombreuses attaques terroristes en France ont été dues à des mouvements séparatistes, pour 95% d'entre elles, et à des attentats mafieux pour 5%. En revanche, le terrorisme se réclamant du djihadisme, qui figure comme l'une des principales menaces contre la France dès le premier paragraphe du résumé du livre blanc de la défense et de la sécurité nationale, a représenté 0%.
But the people who are standing up to them, Malala, incredible Muhammad Ali Dadak in Iran, in prison for 9 years for speaking up for Christians.
Umar ibn al-Khattab has a very interesting story because when he came to Jerusalem, there was no bloodshed, there was no fighting. In fact, Jerusalem was in such turmoil that the leaders welcomed his coming and welcomed becoming part of the Islamic Empire, and this is something that's well documented. Umar ibn al-Khattab, if you read about him, and by the way, he's the 52nd most influential man in world history according to Michael Hartman. That's the book of the 100 most influential people in the world. A man of justice, a man for whom you have actually a statement in the United Nations Charter. There's actually a statement in the UN Charter from Umar ibn al-Khattab, how can you enslave a man who was born free? He was the first one to say that. So he's a man whose justice is well known, who history has been kind to. And then the Bishop of Jerusalem took him to the Church of Nativity. He gave him a little bit of a tour of Jerusalem, and he took him to the Church of Nativity. And while they were in the Church of Nativity, the call for prayer came. The call for prayer came, for the noon prayer came. And Umar ibn al-Khattab was in there, and he knew it was time to pray. And the Bishop of Jerusalem told him, he said, look, why don't you just go ahead and pray here? You're the leader. You don't have to go outside and pray. You can just pray here. It'll be an honor for us. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said to him, he said, no. He said, because I'm afraid that Muslims will come generations later and claim this is a masjid, this is a mosque, because this is where I prayed. So he walked out of the church, he walked down the steps, and he prayed right there. And then lo and behold, 400 years later, they built a mosque there called Masjid Umar, the Mosque of Umar. So he was right. He knew how history works with these things. He didn't want people to claim that church as a mosque just because he prayed there. Not because it was impermissible or not because there was some theological objection to that. He just wanted to give the people their rights and their respect. He also made the famous Pact of Umar, which essentially guaranteed the rights of all citizens there, guaranteed the rights of people to practice their own faiths. Christians and Jews not only were allowed to live in peace, they were allowed to judge each other by their own law. So they were not subject to Islamic law. They were allowed to keep things according to their law, out of sensitivity and out of justice towards them. So it wasn't like, again, the Bible was thrown away or the Torah was thrown away.
لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون.
ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم.
ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن
ولا تجادلوا أهل الكتاب إلا بالتي هي أحسن إلا الذين ظلموا منهم وقولوا آمنا بالذي أنزل إلينا وأنزل إليكم وإلهنا وإلهكم واحد ونحن له مسلمون.
A friend that I had in Pakistan who was shot this year, Rashid Rahman, for defending people accused of
this. What are you doing, or what do you plan to do, to educate Muslims that if someone chooses to leave Islam, that person should not be killed?
Well, asked a very important question. And he said that what if a person who's practicing Islamic faith changes to any other faith? Is it required that he should be killed? And all these articles that came about me, a preacher of hate, one of the point was that Dr. Zakir prescribes death penalty for those Muslims who leave their faith and they profess any other faith. Again, these reports were out of context. They took up a portion of my speech where I said that many scholars say that a Muslim who leaves this faith and professes any other religion, death penalty is the punishment. But I went on to further say that death penalty is not a standard punishment for any Muslim who leaves this faith and professes any other religion. I gave the example that one during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there was a Muslim who converted to another faith and had done some wrong deed for which the Prophet had told they should be put to death. But later on, when Hazrat Usman, may Allah be pleased with him, he approached the Prophet and said that the man should be forgiven, the Prophet pardoned him. This incident proves that death penalty is not the standard rule for any Muslim who changes his faith. If he does some act which requires to be punished by death, depending upon the act he has done. But according to Islam and according to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, according to me, death penalty is not the standard rule for any Muslim who changes his faith and professes any other religion. And that's what I've told in my talks.
Or how about the more than a billion people who aren't fanatical, who don't punish women, who just want to go to school?
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Don't do any of the things that you're saying all Muslims
wait a second.
Stereotyping.
Wait a second.
Things, and you're painting the whole religion with that.
No, let's get down to who has the right answer here. A billion people, you say. All these billion people don't hold any of these...
$1.5 or something.
Don't hold these pernicious beliefs?
No,
I would...
Well, they don't.
That's just not true, Ben. That's just not true. You're trying to say that these few people, that's all the problem is, these few bad apples. The idea that someone should be killed if they leave the Islamic...
That's horrible. That should...
Wait, you're saying that the idea that someone should be killed if they leave the Islamic religion is just a few bad apples?
The people who would actually believe in an act that you murder somebody if they leave Islam is not the majority of Muslims at all.
Okay, but
what is your solution? What is your ask?
No,
just condemn Islam?
The solution, the solution is very much what
we've killed more Muslims than they've killed us by an awful lot. We've invaded more Muslims.
I am not for more killing.
An awful lot. And yet somehow we're exempted from these things because they're not really a reflection of what we believe in. We did by accident. That's why we invaded Iraq and put 4 million people.
We're not convincing anybody.
It's not specifically telling you that I disagree with what you think.
I know, and we're obviously not convincing anybody of the